Welcome to the Love and Victory Show with Val, the place to laugh, sip on a little wine, and have open and honest conversation. Here you will find the tools to resolve real life issues. Unwind, pour up a glass, and get ready to exhale. Hello, my name is Valerie Carter. Welcome to the Love and Victory Show with Val. I am your host. And so again, I want to say to you, oh God, I hate to look down because why did her name just leave my head?
Kate Chericello.
I know, it was the Chericello, Kate.
It's
I could not,
everybody.
it did. It was like, I knew it was Kate, but I could not, that Chericello, I just have to remember cello, the cello, right? Is a cello
Yep.
up here? Is a
And
cello down there?
How do you play the cello? You sit on a chair. So chair a cello.
Chair a cello. Okay, great.
Usually helpful.
It's helpful. Well, I'm just excited to have you on the Love and Victory Show with Val podcast. And hopefully one day we will have you on the radio.
Wonderful. Thank
Yes.
you.
Well, tell our listeners a little bit about yourself before we get going.
Sure. In brief, again, I'm Kate, and I live in New York City. I grew up in New Jersey, but I've been here for over a dozen years now. I am a performer, host, and fitness professional, so I'm in a lot of different directions, but it really is amazing how they all tie into one another. That is the short version. And I live in Midtown Manhattan and with my husband and my little dog, and yeah, I'll keep it there because I'm sure you'll ask me a lot of other questions.
You know, I got you. One of the things that was so interesting about you, Kate, is that you were just so transparent with your journey. And I think that you have something that is going to be so refreshing for our listeners to hear. And even someone that is kind of struggling with just being transparent with where they are in their life. So I have a couple of questions that the team have put together. And I just kind of want to just get this thing going. And it's not really about questioning and answering. It's more so about having a conversation.
Great.
Fair
Great.
enough?
I love
Okay. So if we start off, we want to talk about rejecting perfection. And I know in your field, it's all about looking a certain way. And people tend to not, we're just in the professional field, period, especially as a woman, we're more concerned with how we look. How am I looking to someone else? But with that comes a lot of what I want to say, self-esteem issues. We kind of not really feeling good about yourself, but putting on a face as if you got it all together when in fact you're not together. Let's talk about that in your profession. Or did you ever experience that?
Oh yeah, and my brain just went in a million directions of you could take this question so many different directions because absolutely yes. Something I have noticed in recent years though, especially with, and I don't know if it's caused by this or it just plays a role, but with Instagram and TikTok and all of this, people are just popping up on a screen at all times.
Yes.
Where on one side it is feeding that, oh, I have to look perfect all the time, but I do see on the other side of it, there is a push to just show up like how you are in this moment. Don't put makeup on. Let your hair be a mess.
Right.
And I think that's really refreshing. So I don't know statistically which one is getting more traction, but I am glad to see there's more of that aspect. And I do see it translated to the screen and the stage. As a performer, when I started, it very much was, you were the ideal height and weight, and you looked this way, and you carried yourself this way. And there has been a shift of a lot more of just all body types and all looks. Just one random example that comes to mind is the recent production of 1776 here on Broadway.
Right.
And I mean, there was every height, weight, ethnic background, just age. It was so vast. So there is more of that. So I do see that aspect of going in the right direction. But that said, I mean, especially as a dancer as well in this performing field, beyond, you have people who are strictly acting, strictly singing, strictly dancing, or a mix of all of it. And I fall into that category. And the dance aspect, especially, I'm not saying that the others aren't as well, but we stare at a mirror for hours on end.
And I think, do you think that also plays in your everyday life, your self-esteem? Because if you're staring in a mirror all day long, a lot of times people, what they're looking at is not what they see looking back at them. So I can sit up here and tell you all day you're absolutely beautiful. What is the problem, Kate? You're gorgeous. What's going on with you? You can say to me, Valerie, you're beautiful. But if that's not how I see myself when I look in the mirror, I'm still projecting that thing that's on the inside that I'm hiding and suppressing, or maybe that one word that someone said to me years ago that is still stuck in my head every time I get in front of a camera.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I went to a great college, but they had a ballet specific major, and I wasn't that, but having a lot of friends who were in that major and just to give one specific kind of instance of this, where professors were sitting down these females who are 20 years old and saying, you've gained too much weight. You need to take it
Yes.
off. And there is that regard of like being healthy and you're a dancer and fueling your body appropriately. But this was just like another level of how, and, I'd had people come to me because I was in fitness and they were my friends being like, I don't know what to do. And it's so hard because I look at these people, I'm like,
It's
what
nothing wrong.
weight
What are
do
you
you have
talking
to
about?
lose?
Yes, yes. And I think that
Yeah.
goes back to, again, kind of where I started this conversation off, and I really want to talk about from a woman's perspective, is other people measuring and projecting on us how their idea of what an ideal woman should look like, or how an ideal woman should wear her makeup or her hair. And we're just so vastly different in so many ways. And I think if we start to just respect, and it starts a lot of times with us as women, because I think we're more of a critic to one another. And that goes back to how we see ourselves. So if we just start appreciating ourselves a little more, then we can appreciate others.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. And what do you see, with especially your guests and what you've seen on social media? Because I know I see, again, going back to that, like two different ways things are going with regard to body image. There's a lot more of the love your body no matter what. But then there still is this whole other resource of, especially for kids, like the bullying that you can just do by typing.
I think I see a lot of that on social media, but I look at social media like this, and I've had so many shows where I've talked about social
Yeah.
media and the negative. But I do think that social media has been very positive, but it's positive for the matured person, the healthy
Mhm.
person. So when you're unhealthy, you're projecting that unhealthiness across the airways. So when a person that can show up with no makeup on and not really worry about how, or no filters, and not really worry about how you see me, that person is in a much more healthier place, I think, than someone that has to be on all the time. And you're projecting to the younger generation because they see their whole being through this lens of social media.
Yeah.
You're projecting to them, especially the older generation, you have to be perfect. And that's not true. And so I think it can be used in a positive way, but I think the more mature people need to just really get away from that crap. Trying to act like we got it all together as if we never struggled with anything, when in fact we had a whole bunch of things that we struggled
Yeah.
with.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
I don't mean to keep bringing up social media, but just it
No,
feels like it totally surrounds us so much
it
that when you
does.
talk about self esteem and body issues, I feel like so much is that constant barrage of what is on these
But
platforms.
I think it goes back to what's selling,
Ah,
right?
hmm.
So, unfortunately, for some of these different brands out here, what's selling? How are they going to make money? So, what makes money? How have they been able to use the female for so long? Is through, I'm going to say it, through sex sales, body image sales. Just be honest. I mean, those are the things that have sold. I'm sorry. Okay, can I have my? She was bringing the
Yeah.
coffee. Okay, I'm sorry. I was getting some afternoon coffee because
Very
I'm a little.
nice.
Okay, thank you, thank you. I
Very
know you wouldn't
nice.
mind.
Have at it.
I know, right? You gotta have one. So I think that has really helped hurt. I'm gonna say honestly, I think it's hurt the younger generation, and
Mhm.
I think that some of the older generations trying to fit in to this
Mhm.
world with. I'm sorry. Thank you. Lottie, Lottie, Lottie. Look. Uh oh.
Nice. Oh, and it's even a branded mug. You're so on point there.
Yeah. Oh, of course. And then the other part is just a little color in it for the afternoon. How about that?
Very
What else?
nice.
Perfect. So I just think that we, as an older, more mature generation, we have to do a better job at when we see some of the younger people out there on the social media, kind of just putting themselves out there in a what we know is not positive. We should say something in a loving way without tearing them down. So that's just my
And
thought. Go
yeah,
ahead.
yeah. There's some other like aspects outside of social media that kind of tie into what you're saying. I think of Aerie did that campaign of, no airbrushing, natural. It was
Right.
very much right to young women. And I thought, okay, that's a step in the right direction. And the other one I've noticed, and I think a lot more brands are doing this, I just happened to look at Lululemon's website a little extra because I am in the fitness world and I
Yes.
love how the clothes fit. But they've done a much better job at like showing that size 2 model, but also having a size 10 or 12 model, like having some
Well,
different.
I think with them, I was actually on the fence with them for a long time because I think all they were showing in the beginning was that size 2
That's
model.
it.
And I
Absolutely.
was like, I'm sorry, I would never wear it, even though you're hiding my size, which is a 10, 12. In the back of the store, you're still wanting my money. I will not promote it and I will not buy it when you're not willing to put a model out there of that size. And so the fact that now they actually have campaigns where they show the whole woman, the woman from all walks of life, because it was just a certain type of woman that they would promote.
Yeah. And that's not
Yeah.
even the average American size,
It's
you
not
know?
even the average man. And when you think about it, it was almost as if, and a lot of brands do this, it was
Yeah.
almost as if they were just promoting in their eyes who was buying their product. But it comes off as who they really want to buy their product. And so it was just insulting. And I think it was also leaving so much money on the table that they figured that thing out. You ever thought about it that way?
Yeah. No,
Yeah.
absolutely. It's
Yes.
so I mean, even any store you go in, like what size are the mannequins? It's now I
Yes.
start to see a little, change
Full
of
figured,
sizes, but
yeah, full figure. Well, I'm
still
gonna
the
jump
majority.
right on here. How many roles or auditions have you done in the last year?
Oh, that's a great question.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know the exact number off the top of my head because since the pandemic started, I will say what has the big shift has, been very rare has anything been in person, at least for
Mm-hmm.
me with an audition. It's all very much been self tapes. So
Oh,
on the screen side of things, that's more of a casting director will request a video and give you specific instructions, and you'll send that video. On the
okay.
stage side, I'm a member of the union, and there's been something called like it's EPA's ECCs, which is basically the union open calls where they give the opportunity for anyone in the union to submit for this show.
If you
So,
don't mind, can you tell
yeah.
me about that? I never knew that there was a union
Oh,
for
yes,
that. So
yes.
can you explain that and how did that even come about so that you guys can get paid fairly or what is that all
Yeah.
about? Okay.
Yeah. Again, like a short version instead, because that's like could be a 3 hour explanation. But the
Okay.
short version, there's for stage actors, it's Actors Equity Association. And for screen, there's SAG AFTRA, which a lot of people know SAG, like the SAG Awards, or they've heard of that kind of an
Mm-hmm.
aspect.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But I'm in the stage union, and that means on camera things, I can submit for union and non-union projects because I'm not in the union. But on stage, I'm only allowed to submit for things that are considered union projects. So that means there is a contract with the union that covers what they consider fair rehearsal amounts and the hours and very specific information on breaks. And if it's an out of town show, very specific information on housing and transportation and what's covered and what's not, and different salary ranges. And depending on the size of the theater and different contracts with the union, they have different salary ranges. And then depending on your role, different salary. And then depending on what you do within your role, you could get a higher salary as well. So all of that is covered by the union. And then one other thing that people focus on with the union is health insurance, so that you have to work a certain number of weeks in the union each year to get health insurance. That could be a whole other little like rabbit hole because it is a very oversaturated market. There's a ton of people in the union and there are not enough jobs for everyone. So it's actually a very low percentage of union actors who are working constantly,
I guess I
which
have a. I'm sorry, I didn't mean. Go ahead.
no, no, it's okay. I was just
I
to say,
guess
which
the
is unfortunate.
Yeah, it really is. And so I guess the question I would have is, do they, with working with the union, is there a fee that you guys have to pay to be a part of the union? And so in that fee, that doesn't cover the health care? What does the fee cover? I mean, I'm just asking.
Administrative costs and the
Yeah, okay.
opportunity
To
to
be a
get to
part of the club,
auditions.
to be a part of the club?
Yeah, and
Uh-huh.
to like to staff the audition centers, that kind of thing.
Mm.
The people who are negotiating contracts, that's what it's like, that kind of thing. And you have to qualify to get in the union to begin with, and that's the same, SAG or Equity, Actors Equity. And then they both have different initiation fees. That's the one-time fee, and
Hmm.
then it's a biannual for Equity, a biannual fee that you have to pay.
So in that biannual fee, my insurance isn't covered. I'm just thinking this is only for me because maybe I want to be an actress, and so I just want to know if I pay this one-time fee annually, what am I getting out of it
What's the
besides
vibe you
being a
want
part?
the show to go?
Okay, I'm sorry. Okay, okay.
No,
Well, maybe
I
we'll
get,
do. I want this to be candid conversation. So if you're
I
willing to
don't
go
want to.
there, I'm willing to go there.
I
We'll
guess
keep
what
it.
I'll
We'll
say
keep it
is
tasteful.
there's been a lot of frustration with the union, but at the same time, if the union didn't exist, we'd be pretty screwed because producers can then do what. So to give what that would be is a non-union project. They could pay you $200 a week and house you in
Mm.
some terrible place, and they will get hundreds of actors to go to that audition, and actors who will accept $200 a week because it's a passion. We want to work so badly that some actors will say, I don't care, I'll take $200 a week to go to XYZ place in a state somewhere to do this show. So for instance, an Equity production would say you have to pay at least this. Not that it's always high, but going into it, like, this has been agreed upon, you will pay that, and they will pay into your insurance. So it's when you're working that you get paid into the insurance. So when you're getting a salary, a percentage of that, just like if you were in like a regular job, I say with quotes,
Mhm.
W-2, where you'd be getting paid into pension, paid into insurance. It's that type of same thing with Equity, but you have to be working. So to go back to like initiation fee and your dues, you need to have complete the checklist to get into Equity. There's a certain amount of weeks you have to work at an Equity theater as non-union. There's different parameters like that before you can get into the union. But once you're in the union, then the fees are the administrative fees. They're the staffing the audition centers. But it is a sour point for many because of the frustration of there's so many actors and only this amount of jobs, and kind of like it's a rock and a hard place a lot of times too, because they're trying to make it better to be an actor,
Mhm.
and to have those safety require. I mean, safety, that's a huge thing. People who are
And I was
flying with those
actually getting
audience.
I was actually getting ready to go there because I'm
Yeah.
sure the set or the actors or the person that's putting on the show, they take on a lot of liability. And so that
Yes.
comes with high insurance fees and just even trying to get someone to underwrite you. I get that. So it's definitely not to slam them, but I do have to question if it was me, a newbie coming up, I'm really not making any money. I'm paying, I don't know what that fee is. I'm paying an exorbitant amount, I'm sure, because it's money that I'm not making, even when I get in. And then I may not have gotten a job in 6 months. And 6 months later, I'm due to
In
pay
six
again.
years. It can
Oh,
be years.
year, huh? Oh my God. See, and then I'll be that one. I'll be quiet. I'm going to keep it there. So it can be 6 years, but you still have to pay that dues every month, every year.
If you want to stay in the union. Now, you can leave the union and say that's it, but I don't even know the exact
No.
details of like what if you wanted to come back later on. It's complicated.
I'm sure it is, and
So
I kind of feel like if you're going to go for that to be a part of the union, you kind of almost have to stay in it because it's a part of your brand, it's a part of your resume, it's also a positive thing. However, when it's been 6 years and I haven't made any money, anybody in business have to evaluate, is it worth it? Let's talk about the workload out there in New York. Do you think that the workload or the work opportunity in New York is better than LA? Or why do you choose to stay in New York versus going out to the West Coast in LA?
I chose New York because it's just what I had always, I mean, Broadway has always been like when I was a little kid, what do you want to do? Be on Broadway. So it was always
Hmm.
in my head of New York City. And I'm also from New Jersey, so not too far away. It's just very close and to what I know. I really love the East Coast.
Hmm.
So it was just a no brainer for me. I knew I was moving to New York after college as far back as I can remember. It was just that kind of a thing.
Hmm.
But I will say, in terms of opportunities, there's amazing opportunities on both coasts, especially today. Historically, you'd say New York is for the stage and LA was for screen, but
Hmm.
now,
It's
especially on screen, and I mean with self tapes, people. I did a shoot last month where there were two other actors, and one drove in from Pittsburgh and one drove in from like New Hampshire
oh
because they just
wow.
had to send self tapes, so they never had to be seen in person. So it wasn't until they booked the project that they even had to get to the city.
Oh
So it's
wow.
really shifted.
It's changed a lot. Do you think pandemic had something to do with that too? For
Huge
sure.
amount with the self tapes, yeah.
Yeah.
And the other thing that started before the pandemic, with especially with screen, although I will say stage, there's theaters all over the country that are amazing, and there are
Hmm.
theaters that are huge and have Broadway performers all over the country. So there's always opportunities. New York was just always kind of like the home base and the hub, and where all the other theaters would come to audition. But with the screen side of things, uh, more outlets, more other cities are now doing more productions, and there's a lot of tax incentives from different states to bring production there. So where
Okay.
it used to be that like it felt like almost every show and movie was filmed in LA, right?
Hmm.
Whether or not
Right.
it was, but it felt like that. Now, I mean, almost all the Hallmark movies are like in Canada and Tennessee and
Right.
Atlanta, and we've got Yellowstone and all of those. Their spin-offs are up in the, I think, is it one, they're all, it's all over the place now.
And I think that's a part also marketing that particular area too for money. I mean, it's for tourists. It's all. I think a lot of the filming has to do with just bringing revenue to a particular area. I have a question. I want to take this conversation a little deeper, and we talked about the money. We talked about the what's the word I want to use? We talked about the union. Let's talk about the ugly side of being in, oh God, being an actress. Have you experienced anything?
Yeah, and just I'm
Hello,
getting
did
a
you? Oh, okay.
pop-up that says, that's saying it seems like a stream is having connection issues. Are you getting that on your side, or
Okay.
is everything okay?
No, everything's clear over here. We did get a little
Oh, good.
delay, so they'll fix it over here on this end. So just keep
Oh,
going through.
okay,
Okay.
cool, cool.
Okay.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure. See the ugly
Yeah.
side, right?
Yeah, let's talk about that
Yeah.
dark side. And did you experience the dark side? And if so, how did you come through it, or was it something that turned you around?
Mm-mm. I will say I've been really fortunate with the years, and I think that my sometimes ridiculously optimistic outlook has
Hmm.
also saved me from some of those moments. I think through my 20s, especially, where I think back to my schedule in my 20s, trying to make the money to afford to live in New York
Uh-huh.
and trying to be a performer. And this is kind of taking it in a slightly off direction from your exact
That's
question, but
okay.
I think about that kind of like it could have pulled me down so much and I could have quit so many times. But in my head, it was just this endless optimism of like, nope, we got to do this. And this is going to get us to our dreams. We got to follow our goals. And also finding that other job, like the other job that paid consistently that I really did love doing. has been huge. I've been in the fitness side of things for about 14 years now, 12 of those in New York. And that has brought me like being able to even just practice my performing skills. If you think of it, isn't any teacher, any instructor is a performer in some way, shape, or form. So
Right.
that, right, you're thinking on your feet, you get paid to stay in shape, which is a great bonus. And the other aspect of that, tying into like the what could really pull you down as a performer, is you're constantly rejected, if you want to just put it
Yes.
bluntly, right, as a performer. Well, I would go to like maybe 3 auditions and then go teach a fitness class, and audition would be, I sing, thank you. I sing, next one, thank you. And that's kind of the
Hmm.
vibe. And this is before I also, just to go back, before I found more of the on camera side of things, which I really
Hmm.
love too now. And I'm very much doing a lot of both. But historically, especially in my first years of New York, stage performance was my main thing. So it was all
Hmm.
of those singing auditions, dancing auditions, and it would be thank you, bye. And then I'd go to teach a fitness class. And all these people would come in and be like, Kate, yes, we're so excited. Guess what I did yesterday? And like this energy of, oh my gosh, this is
I'm
what makes
wanted, I'm accepted. This is what I need. This keep it. So it fueled you to keep pressing on in your
me
passion.
exactly.
And I
And
think,
so many people don't have that job. They're
and
like,
I,
they're waiters, they're caterers, just, yeah.
I'm gonna say this. It's so funny you said you're making that statement there, because when you're on that journey to get to where your ultimate goal is, you still have to have something that is going to fuel you, but you can't give up on that dream, because internally, don't you feel like if you would have just stopped and not even worked towards your passion, incomplete,
Oh,
unfulfilled?
I can't even imagine it. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
what would you tell the 20-year-old Kate that is getting fresh out of college, that's trying to figure her way in what's the next move because you're already getting rejection or you didn't land that gig? What would you tell the 20-year-old Kate?
I think there's the aspect of, I don't want to say I would tell her to do things differently because then that wouldn't lead me to where I am now, right? And
Mm-hmm.
everything does lead to something else. Would I have liked to have used time more efficiently so that by now I was in a different place? Oh, I would have loved to. And I would love to tell her, really take the time to learn as much as you can from people who are ahead of you in the profession. I never really had that mentor that
Right.
was in my field. So I
Mm-hmm.
think that would have been really good. Like I always said that I felt like I was creating my own grad school. I came to New York with, I didn't know people. I had to meet everybody, and there's plenty like
Yes,
me.
I
There's plenty
totally
like,
get what you. Yes.
yeah, but I also knew of people whose parents were paying their rent, so they didn't have to worry about getting a job. I knew people that already had like a friends from college here, so they already could talk to them about getting auditions. And I was learning it all on the go, so I'm really proud of myself for that. But I would love to say, to that 20-year-old me of like really learn, not don't just go to check the boxes of showing up at each audition, which is also needed, but
Yes.
spending more time on
The
who
craft.
is in my shoes, who can I reach out to? Yes, all of that, because I think I could have gotten past a lot of years of more slowness, maybe. And again, I don't know, God has a
It's
plan, but
That's
I've,
so true, because even in my profession, I
yeah,
think that if I go back to the 20-year-old me, that I always tell my team, I was probably the worst employee anybody could ever hire. I don't
no.
know. I mean, I figured out ways to take shortcuts. I'm not going to lie, or I would look at someone and say, how did they get that job? I'm much more qualified, but they had a better attitude than I did. Or why are they overlooking me? It's not about them overlooking me. It's about what am I doing when my opportunity is here. And so if I would have to say, talk to the 20-year-old Val, I probably would tell the 20-year-old Val, everything that is going to come your way, take that opportunity to absolutely learn everything. Somewhere down the road, you're going to need it. And instead of just feeling like, what about me? Learn everything you can learn. And because it all comes together like a fine puzzle. in the end, and only God knows when that end and that puzzle is supposed to meet. So
I love that you said that. I've had a podcast now and weekly show for 2 years called Be the Good with Kate, where I get to interview all these people who have found a way to follow their passions, and by following their passions, they're helping others along the way. But
yes,
a theme that keeps coming up over and over and over again is exactly what you said right there about I wish I had learned, or taking everything along the way,
hmm
because no matter where the journey goes, and it's always zigzagging and going off in different directions, it all adds up
it
to
does. It
yes.
does. It really does. And I think with you, Kate, you're so easy to talk to. I think you're so transparent. And I think that we have to do a better job of those that have been out here in the field a little while, is being more candid and being more honest with the ones that are coming up behind us. And I think having this conversation with you, there needs to be a part 2, part 3, part 4. You have your podcast, I have mine. And I think that we can do a better job of communicating and helping the younger generation. I'm looking to Abigail because she knows, and Jacob, and I know what I'm getting ready to say. I want a part 2. Unfortunately, and a part 3. Unfortunately, on the podcast, we can't keep it going forever, but it's so much more I want to dive into with this conversation, because it's so much that needs to be said. Because we have so many people. When you first started out, you had to go and audition. They're auditioning by their Instagram. They how many likes and follows you have. So that's completely different. That's a whole different avenue. And I really want to have an opportunity to talk about that.
Okay. I would love to. I would love
Oh,
to. This
okay.
has
What do
been
you have
so
for
interesting.
me? Any questions you have for me before we cut this thing off?
Oh, yeah, it came up before when I was just learning about you. I read about and everything, but I would really love, why did you want to start this podcast, but then also what kept it going this
Okay.
long?
Honestly, it's so funny. VK Consulting Group, I have a medical consulting firm.
Mhm.
And I guess just before the pandemic, my husband and I decided to start a nonprofit helping people with disability because of our son. He had did 3 tours in Iraq. And so that 15, 16-year journey has been very difficult for us. And so I needed to have a place to place some of the pain and some of the ups and down emotions with. And so it was like, hey, start a nonprofit. And then the team at that time said, Miss Carter, why don't you start a podcast as a way to get the message out about the nonprofit? And from there, to be perfectly honest with you, this is my passion. I never, ever thought about doing a podcast. Radio was never anything I ever dreamed of doing. But if I can be honest, 100% honest with you, I know that this is the path that God has for me, and it's about touching and healing and helping and being a guide for those other people out there in the world, and being very honest. And so I love it.
Oh, that's
And
so wonderful.
and what keeps me going, honestly, and why I haven't shut it down, and why I could never shut it down, is when we finish a podcast or after a show, my husband and myself, we walk away. It's like, God, I learned so much about myself. I learned so much about me. Oh my God, she's amazing, or he's amazing. And so and people's feedback from the show has said, I'm on the right track.
Oh, I love that. And that it's so relatable. I felt like, the height of the pandemic, I would have to interview a guest and it would just be like, oh, I don't know about this. And you get on camera and then 20 minutes later, I'm like, wow,
What,
there are so many great people out there.
yes, but have you ever got on? And I know I'm gonna cut it. I'm gonna cut it. They're looking at me like, Miss Carter, wrap it up. Okay. Have you ever had a guest, honestly, that you had to interview, and you're like, I can't get anything out of this. This is just dead rocks. This is just not gonna be good at all. Have you ever had one like that?
I've had a couple where I got really nervous and then we eventually pulled some things out. And then when I went back and listened, I was like, oh, wait, no, we're good.
You're good.
Like that.
Well, it's so funny. I'm not gonna lie. When it's dead rocks, because candid conversation is about being honest and real, and as I tell people, and when you're not willing to come on here and be honest and real, I cannot have a conversation with you, because I'm not gonna be fake, because I
Yeah.
think your audience is going to pick through it. So you definitely are a very transparent person. I think that you truly have a message, and I think that you really complement the brand. And I definitely would love to have you back on again.
Oh, thank you. It would be my honor. I really appreciate this. This
Yeah.
made my day.
Well, I think Abigail is going to reach back out because we have to do part two. Okay.
I'll look forward to it.
And again, thank you so much for being a part of the Love and Victory Show with Val.
Thank you, Val. I really appreciate it.
Bye bye. Oh, before we go, can you tell the people how they can find you if they're wanting to reach out to your podcast, and then do you have your book? We also want to, if you could, we promote the books on our site, so I would love to get a copy and
I
tell
actually
them what
don't have a book.
you don't
Just
have a book.
podcast.
Oh, she was asking, do you have a book? I'm sorry. Okay,
Oh.
I'm sorry. Oh, okay, you don't have a book. Okay.
No, you're good.
Okay, good. So, but anyway, let them know how they can get in touch with you and be a part of your podcast.
Thank you. Thank you. So my website is myname.com, katechericello.com, which I'm sure will be in the show notes for spelling.
Yes.
And the podcast is Be the Good with Kate, and you can find it on all podcast platforms or YouTube. And then my Instagram is at positively_Kate, and that's where I also always share about what's going on.
Oh, I absolutely love that. Well, we too will be having an app coming out here very soon. Yes, so just continue to stay connected to the Love and Victory Show, and I want to definitely do the same with you. And Abigail will be reaching back out because hopefully, can I get it back in February?
Yeah.
Okay, are you going to be available in February so we can do
Let's
part
do
two?
it.
Okay, so we would like to do a part two.
I'll look forward to it. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Take care.